Susan Matson, one of the master gardeners who is here today. Bonnie Swenson is another master gardener, and we're here this afternoon at the Damhoff Farm south of Wilmer. This is the Damhoffs here, and they have something called what I call a hoop garden, but they also have different names for it. But it's an enclosed garden where you can begin your plants and typically small plant growth early in the season. So the heat in here is enough to start most of the crops. I'm going to turn this over to Bonnie to at least, and actually what we want to talk a little bit about too first is how this got started, because it is on a dairy farm. And so it's a beautiful space with some nice breezes coming through. But I'm going to turn this over to the Damhoffs, and they can tell a little bit how they got going with this.
This is my 7th year with the greenhouse here. It was a project through SCS. They helped me finance it. And the building happens to be 40 by 100. And it's pretty well built. It's out of 2.5-inch tubing, but it got to be a bigger project than we ever imagined when we started putting it up. And we just put it right in the lawn and then tilled up the inside, so the whole garden is all natural lawn at one time. And usually we'll like to start in the spring about the end of March. Bonnie likes to start just a week or 2 weeks later, and she has a lot better weed control than what Jan and I do. But we are competing against each other a little bit now and then. But she always beats me out because she puts flowers in, and they are beautiful.
All right, but I'll turn this over to Bonnie Swenson, and she can tell a little bit about what she plants. And then I'll turn it back to the Damhoffs, and they can show some of the more unique features that they have, especially with tomatoes, and maybe a little bit difference on the size of some of the plants that they have.
I do have a lot of flowers in here, a lot of annuals that I absolutely love. This is Lysianthus, which is my most favorite of the annuals. It gets like paper roses on it, and the flowers will last in a vase for up to 2 weeks. So that's what all of those are. I also have zinnias in here, and that actually helps with the pollinators. The pollinators like that, the bees, and back here I have calendula, which is actually an herb, and the hoverflies like it, and the hoverflies eat aphids and threfts, which we have gladiolas in here, and gladiolas are known to get threfts. The beans are starting to actually get some beans on there now. I haven't picked them yet, but you can see that they're almost ready to pick. They're pretty thin, but they're loaded. I also have some herbs in here. I have parsley and basil, and I belong to the Curry Society herb group. And the herb that we're learning about this year is the anise hyssop. So I have one that's a transplant from Maureen Pearson, and then this one was started from seed. And that's also a really good pollinator. The bees like that too, so.
Bonnie sells her plants and herbs at and her fruits and vegetables at the farmers market, both on Wednesday afternoons and to be coming on Saturday mornings at the Y. And so maybe, Bonnie, you could tell a little bit about the kinds of things that you bring to the market.
I usually just bring stuff that I have left over. I usually can a lot of it, so a lot of it is I make a corn salsa and some different things that I can. I'll be canning some pickled green beans this year, and some pickled beets, and yeah. So, and if there's anything that's left over that we don't eat or use, then I'll bring it. But like the Lysianthus, I like to put those in. I do the tables at our church, and I like to put those out for that. So.
In the background, just to point this out, we have some raspberry and strawberry plants, but they're actually behind our cameraman, Rudy. There's also grapevines and a couple of cherry trees. So those are pretty unique. The cherry trees are dwarf plants, and the grapevines, there's enough, I'm sure, so that there can be a harvest on those. But all of those can be put in a large hoop garden like this. And so, and again, in the background, you can see some gladiolas. But the thing that's quite unique over on my side to the right, we have some large potatoes, which are getting probably, at this point, the plants are large, the potatoes are small. And the Damhoff family has built some particularly interesting supports for their tomatoes. You want to talk and tell about it, maybe?
This tomato cage right here is built out of PVC, and I was concerned about cost, so I kept track of what this cost to put together, and this one here, the wood one, was actually just as cheap. So we went with the wood one, which will take care of about 12 tomatoes. And I just drop strings down, and I use pipe cleaners or something that resembles pipe cleaners to tie the tomatoes up as they grow. So when they get ready, we just walk right straight in, and we don't have to get on the ground and harvest tomatoes. There's quite a variety of tomatoes. This one right here is a heirloom Brandywine Red, and then we also have yellow pear tomato, and then this will be a little red cherry tomato. And we like to just eat them just the way they are. Come right out, pick one, and they're very juicy and tasty. Or we can make tomato juice or salsa, and if we have extra, then Bonnie can help us out, or we sell them or give them to our neighbors. I think you noticed the potatoes. One thing that stands out to me is the deep, rich green color, and pretty good sized leaves on some of them. Then a few of the other things we have are beets, table beets, and she'll pickle them, can them, freeze them, eat them fresh, and some people even eat the leaves. But they are suffering a little bit from the heat. And the same way with the strawberries this year, it got over 110 degrees, and the strawberries that I have in now don't take the heat very well, so we're hurting there. But there's cabbage, there's broccoli, kohlrabi, spinach, Swiss chard, onions, carrots, and we have the full-size carrots. The kids like to come out and clean them off and eat them right away. And then beans, green beans, and they're very good fresh. And Bonnie's been known to, after she harvests the beets, put in another batch of beets. So she's harvested up to 3 different batches of beets in a year, and you can do that with lettuces and different things. But being a dairy farmer, I get tired, and when fall comes, I just shut the doors and don't look at it. But Bonnie has been known to keep things going, and does a super job.
Well, do any of you want to add anything more? I'm just so impressed. Here it is, the first part of June, and we are looking at a garden that normally probably looks like this in July or August. Especially the tomato plants that are getting quite large. So I'm very impressed by this. Any other questions or anything you want to add?
One thing I was going to add is that there's so many benefits to plant in here. We have control of the water with the soaker hoses, and so we can control how much water the plants are getting, and especially for the tomatoes, and being the tomatoes are up and not laying on the ground, we have very little diseases on the tomatoes. Another thing is that it did get hot in here when the weather got so hot, and my beets, they bolted. They went right to seed, so I didn't get any beets, but I planted right away, pulled them up, and I planted some dill and some kohlrabi in that row, and they're already up. So
It's very amazing. So you can see what now you have to work with as gardeners. I can see what I have to work with my tomatoes, but we join together here before we say goodbye for the day. The Damhoff Farm is south of Wilmer. It's about a mile south of the Savea School. There's a sign on the outside on the highway that says Shrimp Farm. So this is just part of the shrimp farm, but it's an interesting way to look at a garden too. In case you're interested, give the Damhoffs a call. Let them know you might be curious about this. And to the rest of you, happy gardening.